Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Kaufman here with you. Yes, again, Kaufman back with you. It's been a few weeks, so glad to be here. And thanks to my producer, Evan Valenti, for holding down the fort the last couple of shows with Jared Weiss, Dan Greenberg. Those guys, they're great. Part of the next guard of Celtics coverage, at least compared to this guy. This guy has been around the block, and he is a good friend of this show. The legendary Bob Ryan with me today, long of the Boston Globe, ESPN, of course, hosts a show with Jeff Goodman right here on the CLNS Media Network as well. What a way to open March. How's it going, my friend?
Yeah, this is the 58th anniversary of Wilt's 100-point game, so let's pay homage.
Well, yeah, there you go. You know, I'll tell you what, we are going to turn back the clock. We're going to go through the time machine just a little bit later on in the show. But, of course, let's live present day. In fact,
yep.
I wanna bring you right in with this, you know, because we're going to get to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the health of Kemba Walker, Robert Williams, Boston's place among the NBA elite after winning 14 out of 18, all that good stuff. But I want to bring you into my life a little bit here, Bob, okay? Now, I had a bunch of friends over on Saturday. We were watching the game against the Rockets. This is a debate that, completely independent of that game, it turns into a shouting match. Anger, frustration, it's been going on for months, if not years on end, because I and many people I know, you are among them, I believe. We've definitely talked about this. I love and I trust Marcus Smart. Some of my friends, however, are among those, and I see them on social media too, believe that the C's guard is wildly overrated. My buddy Josh in particular, because I hope he's listening, he said of Smart, and I quote, "Excellent defender, great pass first point guard. If he's in your top 3, you're an average team. If he's your 5, you're great. He's a luxury for a championship team, someone that you want on a team-friendly contract, but no team would look at him and say, ooh, we have to have that guy to win a title." Your thoughts?
I'll put it somewhere in the middle. That's an interesting theory about the third best guy, fifth best guy. He's certainly, if he's your third best guy, let's see, I'm thinking, well, which often nights he is, and some nights he's more than that. On this team right now, that's okay. Look, I'm a fan. I'm a member of the fan club. I'll get it. I'm not a president. I'm a regional president in the sub-region here of the Marcus Smart fan club. He gives you things that are not replaceable anywhere else in the league. There is nobody like him. There are facsimiles, always. The closest thing to him is a sawed-off version of him, and that's Patrick Beverley. I don't know of anyone else that fulfills this niche of unpredictable craziness. That the other team always has to worry about where he is, what he might do, and what he can accomplish next. And there's an energy that he provides and a toughness that he provides that the team cannot do without for a long period of time. This team cannot survive without Marcus Smart, nor can they survive without Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. But they cannot survive without Marcus Smart either. Last year, when he missed a game, I don't know. I was talking with or emailing Doc. We're still good friends with Doc, and he said, quote, he gives them toughness. So tell that to your smart doubters, where this team would be without Marcus Smart and that toughness. Where else are they going to get it? I'm sorry. He is, to this group, the way this team has been constructed and has evolved, an indispensable part of the mix.
I just like that I name-drop my buddy Josh and you name-drop Doc Rivers. He
would be highly coveted around this league.
Well, and going back to that whole if he's in your top 3 thing, we were all like this group of us. We were all texting about this. You could make the claim, looking at the rosters, that Smart would be the third best player on the Bucks, Sixers, Lakers, Clippers, Rockets, Jazz, Nuggets, a whole bunch of teams that are right there in the conversation.
Yeah, can you imagine if you threw him into the Bucks with the defense they already have?
Oh my goodness!
I mean, come on, that's a good one. I like it. I like it very much. And he would certainly change the feel of the Sixers. And I love Marcus Smart, and he's worked hard to make himself a respectable offensive player. I mean, damn it. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm all in on Marcus Smart.
Well, I think even better than respectable, quite frankly. Like, if we were having this conversation a year ago or a year and a half ago, then I would say respectable, and I'd be right there with you. But now he is an elite passer. Yeah. He's a well above average playmaker. Heck, at this point, he's an above average 3-point shooter. I mean, not by a ton, but he is above average.
I was trying not to go overboard, that's all, because I want to, but yes, that was probably an inappropriate choice of words. A good, reliable, and much far more reliable offensive player. Yes.
I am high up in that Marcus Smart fan club, and I will tout all of his achievements and all of these things. But Paul Pierce, who, as we know, I mean, the man bleeds green, maybe literally, and he said on ESPN when talking about depth after Boston's loss to L.A. a couple of weeks ago.
If these two meet in the finals, full strength, Celtics have the advantage psychologically after what we just seen these last two games.
Okay.
I mean, period. I mean, I think Celtics have the best starting five in the NBA. I mean, they have the best collection of forwards, scoring forwards, and that's what you need to win in the games.
All right, so Paul Pierce says they have the best starting five in the NBA. Let's extend that to Marcus Smart because he comes off the bench. So when everybody's healthy, and obviously rarely is everybody healthy, but when everybody's healthy, 1 through 6, would you say the Celtics are the deepest team in the NBA?
I honestly haven't given it enough thought that I can give you. I do not want to give you an off the top of my head answer to that. If you said come back to me in an hour or half hour after I did my homework, I would be willing to give you an answer. I am not going there. There's no way. I can't. I just haven't thought that out at all. I'm sorry. So I'm not. I'm going to. I'll bow to Mr. Pierce on that one. But now that he's mentioned it, I'm going to go do some homework. I'm curious to see if I can support that theory. I'm afraid in terms of Paul Pierce and his prognostications, he's got a lot to live down after that playoff thing last year.
Yeah.
He's lucky he can walk out of the house and not have to put a hoodie on after proclaiming the thing was over after game one of the Bucks series. I love Paul Pierce as a player. Don't get me wrong. I'm only kidding him here, of course. But that was one of the most historically awful public pronouncements in our time.
Well, after you do your homework, I want you to shoot me a text and tell me what you came up with, because I'm curious.
No, really, I'll be happy to do that. Keep me off the street. Give me something to do.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, well, let's just compare a couple of rosters, because I made the remark, probably foolishly, but sometimes, I get prone to hyperbole, that I thought that Boston was a deeper team than Milwaukee overall, because I started thinking about that 1 through 6 quite a bit and maybe left off, some of the guys on the back end. But is it the C's lack of bench after Smart, after Cantor, just so far inferior that you can't make the statement Boston is deeper than Milwaukee, or do you think the Celtics are?
It's a time to be trying to make any positive statement about the Boston bench, looking at this astonishingly woeful production of late. And the other night, and then you contrast that. The Celtics, would they have? No, seriously, what was it? 4 points in the Houston game?
Yeah.
I know they've. And do you know how many points?
And only took, I think, 4 shots or something like that.
How many points the Clippers had off the bench the other night? 64. So now they got Lou Williams. They also have Montrezl Harrell. I mean,
right.
So this is starting to worry me. We need, and I've been screaming for 2 years. Please get a scorer. I want a guy off the bench who, when he files his taxes, puts down his occupational quote professional jump shooter unquote. I've been looking for that guy. And I tweeted, where's Eddie House when you need him? Yeah, where's Eddie House when you need him? They need somebody like that. They need a scorer. I mean, and they've needed this. They've needed this kind of guy for a long time, more than 2 years, by the way. And he's not there. Now they got young kids that have something to offer. I think Grant Williams is going to be a plus in the long run. I think Langford is going to be a plus in the long run. I'm really, I'm disappointed that Carson Edwards has not materialized into any help at all. But it doesn't mean he won't in the long run, but right now he's not. But this is, they need that kind of player, I think, to go a lot. It's going to hold them back, and I really believe that.
So it does seem like that guy is not coming in. Of course, the time in the buyout market, it's winding down. It seems like, Danny Ainge is not seeing that guy, and I know people like to flock to the idea of bringing Isaiah Thomas back. That's not an answer for a variety of reasons. So
that's not the answer.
Right. So I don't think that guy's coming. And to your point about Carson Edwards, I know Brad Stevens tried to kind of leave the door open the other day and say that he certainly could contribute toward the end of the season or even into the playoffs, or maybe he gets hot. The team is. I was thinking a lot about the whole bench scoring end of things, and again, we'll get to Tatum, Brown, other starters in a little bit. But when someone is hurt, obviously Marcus Smart has to start, and so you have that huge struggle to generate anything off the bench. You highlighted the Houston game. There have been other examples of it recently. Celtics president of basketball operations, Danny Ainge, though, he was on the Sports Hub last week, had an interesting sort of perspective about the importance of bench scoring. I want to know if you agree. Here's what he said.
This is the same kind of thing that was, I remember on our team in the 80s, it was like, we need bench scoring. It's like, no, you don't. Not when you have 5 starters that are scoring 120 points. You know, scoring, a lot of teams put their second-best player off the bench or the third-best player off the bench, and like Manu Ginobili as an example. But, you know, I think that's always overrated, bench scoring. I think depth is important, but you need to have guys that fit into their roles. And, you know, we like to use our starting 5 wing players, and I put Kemba in that category, Kemba and Marcus, Jalen, Jason, and Gordon. You know, 3 of those guys are going to be on the court at all times in the playoff series.
So, Bob, to Danny's point, I mean, should Smart be coming off the bench? Should he start and then Hayward maybe comes off the bench to balance things out a little bit? I mean, my producer even said to me, hey, what about bringing Kemba off the bench? And I don't agree with that one, but no. I mean, Hayward I could at least understand. I'm not even saying I'm for it, but I could justify it. What do you think?
Yeah, I as you said it, I'm thinking, you know, it is not a ludicrous notion or anything of that sort to ask him or tell him that's the way he's going to be used. He is a tease still to us now. You know, he's been better this year, clearly. Still not the Hayward they're paying. You know, he's not living up to what they hoped he would be on a consistent basis. He just isn't, not on a consistent enough basis, I'll put it that way. And Danny's not going to totally agree with this. When the 86 team had Seasting, and that's good enough. That's even that would be that. We don't have that guy. We don't have Jerry Seasting. We don't have a guy that reliable drop dead 15-foot shooter. We don't have him, and you know, we hope it was going to be Edward. I knew it was going to be trouble when Edwards had that game in Charlotte. That phenomenal, never to be seen, never before, never again, 8 threes in 5 minutes and 26 seconds. You knew it was going to be a problem. He was going to raise expectations that were not going to be met. But I did think he was going to have a role. I didn't think he would be a non-factor. But we knew he never was going to live back up to that. Danny, about that, yeah, it's easy now. They had a game not in the recent past when they had 4 starters with 25 points, which was only the first time we know it happened since 1960 on this team. Yeah.
But that's not going to happen every playoff game.
Danny himself fulfilled. Hey, Danny, let's go back to Game 7 in 1984 against the Lakers. What turned the game around? You came off the bench in the second quarter and lit the team up, Danny. Thank you, Danny. Yes. You know, so I'm not buying it.
Let's chat about Jason Tatum quite a bit, actually, because he's going to turn 22 years old tomorrow, just 22, and my goodness, this kid has taken the leap that everyone wanted to see this year. In fact, I would argue he has been even better this year than what anyone realistically expected from him after what we saw last year. He's an all-star. He's averaging almost 24 points. He's been efficient, 45% shooting, 40% from 3. He's up over 80% from the line. He's getting 7 rebounds per. February, the best month of his young career, averaged almost 31 points. I think he's going to be the Eastern Conference Player of the Month, but we'll find out. And he has been elite on both sides of the ball for that matter. So what has stood out to you most about his development and his play?
First of all, he's reached the point Saturday night where he didn't really look that good by his new standards, and he still had 30.
Yeah.
And when you get that's a whole other level of excellence and of stature. When you don't look good, getting as good as you have looked, I think if you didn't see those numbers being flashed in real time as the game was going on, you never would have thought after the start he had in that game that he had 30 points. All right, what we're seeing is a franchise player who has first-team All-League capability sooner rather than later, who is going to be a must-have on the Team USA and the Olympics, and who's going to can be the best player on a championship team. He's got and he's just turned 22. Yes, we know that his defensive his prowess has taken a big step up this year. We know that his all-around game, he can make the appropriate passes, particularly off the dribble, and the three-point shooting has been at times fantastic. I mean, and the range is really something. It's not just 3-point. It's Curry land sometimes. There's nothing not to like. This is something. No. And the idea of this is the guy that Danny properly traded up to get, and it's fulfilling it all. Last year, at this time, we were concerned. He had taken a step back every way. Whether we say it's all about being spooked by Kyrie or whatever was going on, he never did really figure it out. Jaylen Brown did. Second half of last year, Jaylen Brown started to play better, but Tatum never matched his rookie year in any consistent way last year, and this year he's not only matched it, he's exceeded it, and he's one of the handful of best players in the league in the last month. If this is and there's no reason to think it was just a blip on the radar screen that this isn't going to be the new norm. If this is the new norm, they've got a great player.
That's kind of one of my favorite things about Jason Tatum is that if Danny is to be believed, he said that Tatum was his guy no matter what. If they had stayed at number one, he was going to take him at number one. But he was so confident Philly would take Fultz, Lakers would take Ball, that he was comfortable trading back for 3 because he knew Tatum would still be there.
Well, that's good. I misspoke, of course. I said he traded up, and, of course, he traded back. Yeah, there's no doubt that was his guy. I think they probably thought Fultz was pretty good. No one foresaw what
all the injuries and everything.
An injury and the psychological problem.
Right, for sure.
That he's now. I'm happy to say his career is on track now. People haven't paid attention. He's been resurrected, and good for him because you wouldn't want any. There's nothing wrong with the young man. You want him to have a good career, and I'm glad he's going to have it. But I'm glad we got this guy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have him around. It's wonderful, and to think of how young he is. But I was asked a very interesting question the other day. If you were Jeff Goodman asked me on our podcast, and he said, if you were starting a team today, how many people would you take ahead of him? If you were starting that old chestnut that we do in sports so often, if you were starting a team today, how many players, given all the factors of age for people and everything else, would you take ahead of him? There aren't many.
No, there really aren't. I mean, that's one of the things that I was going to ask you with Tatum. I mean, how far are we? We're not there yet, so I don't want people to go nuts after what was a tremendous month, but how far are we from viewing Tatum as a top 5, top 10 player in this league?
Oh, 10. We're not far there. In fact, 10, based on this season, up to this point, he's in it. I mean, in the 2019-20 season, you tell me he's not one of the top 10 players? Of course he is. So, and he's on his way up. So how far? Maybe a year or two for 5. I mean, you got to. Who are we talking about? We're talking about. We still got the King, and we still got Leonard, and we still got Giannis, and we got Anthony Davis, and
Durant conceivably when he's healthy.
Then tell me, how many more? How many more? So yeah, he's vaulted into that discussion. He's on the fringe of that discussion. That's where he is, and he's about to elbow his way into the centerpiece of that discussion.
So just as you did, Danny Ainge commended Tatum's 3-point shooting, and not just the fact that he's making them, but the way that he's creating those opportunities is part of the reason that he's played so well. Also the finishing around the rim in the past, that was a real problem. He's been much more consistent at doing that. What do you still need to see from Tatum, though? What's he still need to work on?
Well, I don't know. I mean, technically, I can't. Not much technically. I just think it's command presence. Knowing when and how to take over. If he has the respect, like Brown's an interesting thing here. Brown is talking him up, and I'm glad because people. There was a point in time not too long ago when you could raise the question. Well, if you had to keep one or pay one or the other down, forever, which one would you? And there were people to make a good case for Brown. I'm so happy to have Brown. Brown's terrific, but Brown. This is where Antoine Walker surprised us years ago when he publicly acknowledged that Paul Pierce was the best player on the team. At a point when I was a surprisingly humble statement at that moment from Antoine Walker. Well, I'm not equating. God knows Antoine Walker and Brown are very different players, but Brown is publicly conceding this argument right now. Well, if he enjoys that respect from, and then the thing is how to utilize that respect. And one of the tricky things about sports, what's one of the things so wonderful about basketball. Look, all sports have their essence. They have their dynamics. And one of the dynamics of basketball, 5 people, 1 ball, and that it's not just a matter of talent, but of psychology, of making not just what you can do, but how you can utilize the other people so that you get the best out of everybody. Pete Carrill wrote a wonderful book called The Weak Take from the Strong, and you have to understand the psychology. If you're the best player, you can't take every shot, even though in theory, if they clear out for you that's the best thing you can do for the team. But it isn't in the long run. You have to keep people involved mentally and spiritually, and the best players understand how to do that. So that's where he has to grow into that. He's 22. I don't expect him to have that presence, but once he acquires that, then I think that's the last step.
Obviously, Tatum he's really taken that leap this year, so we will not hold anything against Greg Popovich that he said over the summer before we saw this out of Tatum. But I heard your friend Jackie McMullen remark that back in Team USA camp, Popovich told Tatum, you can be like Kawhi Leonard, you can be like Paul George. Now, I think Kawhi, obviously, that's one of the best of the league. We talked about that. Paul George, I think, possibly, not to get crazy, Paul George could be selling Tatum short. What is Jason Tatum's ceiling?
Its ceiling is that he's Hall of Fame, obviously.
Right.
Couple of championship rings. First team All League some year, not this year, but some year. A couple of times. That's that kind of player. Anthony Davis, the next step up. Anthony Davis has extraordinary talent. He's not as good as Anthony Davis, but to me, that's the just look at the size and the body types and the abilities. That's a fair aspiration. I'll put it that way.
We heard from Pierce earlier, and he's very high on Tatum. You hear it in a lot of the interviews that he does. You see him celebrating like crazy on the sidelines at the Garden when Tatum does big things. But I can't help but wonder, and I'm not trying to create any sort of contrived whatever. These are the things that I think about. Mm-hmm. With the ego in sports, when it comes to all-time greats or legends of a team, and Paul Pierce certainly one of those. Is any part of Pierce a little bit jealous? So many people already think Tatum could be better than he was?
Oh, boy, I hadn't thought about that. I can't say that. I don't know. I think he's a fairly realistic, guy. Even though I kid about that awful prediction, but that aside, he certainly is an astute basketball person. I think he's proud. Look, Paul Pierce is, to me, he's a top. Here we go. Sort of a top 5 Celtic. We know who the top 4 Mount Rushmores are. There's one that you just can't even begin to dispute. That the Celtic pantheon of achievement and accomplishment and honor to this franchise. Are in chronological order: Cousy, Russell, Havlicek, and Bird. And there's no. And then the question is, if we talk about the 5th, it's down to Paul Pierce and Kevin McHale. And we can have that argument, the kingdom come. So that's fine. So someday, will this kid inject himself into that discussion? That would be a good Celtic thing for the future.
Yeah, and obviously lots to achieve before that. We know that. But a guy you mentioned before, Jaylen Brown, he has scored 20-plus in 5 straight. First time all season that he's done that, which really doesn't sound as good when you add the fact that he's averaging better than 20 a game. But what it does do is speak to his consistency. Mm-hmm. And, people may not remember when he signed his new contract extension, which begins, by the way, next year. There were a lot of people, like me, who celebrated the deal. There were others who thought it was too much and that Brown had not earned that yet and that it was an overpay out of Danny Ainge. And right now, Danny is looking like a genius because Brown absolutely would have been maxed out this summer and earned millions more.
I agree. That was a tough one, but you're right, Danny rolled that dice in a sense in his head, I'm sure, and said, I'm going for it. And hoping, then you hope obviously that the young man responds to it in the right way and not I'm arrived, I'm complacent, I don't have anything more to prove, but it uses it as a springboard to show the world how good he can be, and I think that's what he's doing. I think they have a wonderful combination with those two, and plus I can't even think of one of the great things about Brown. He's so adaptable to the modern game because what is he? He's a basketball player. Is he a 3? Is he a big 2? Is he a small 4? I don't know. I don't care. He's a basketball player. We've really reached a point in this game. I'm really ranting now. Not ranting. I'm really roaming now. That this positionless player thing is absolutely the game now, and I'm having at times a hard time adjusting to it. From it's not the basketball I grew up with, but it's the one I have to accept now. But this kid is a wonderful, versatile basketball player, and it's just foolish to try to slot him and say what he is.
I'll ask you the same thing I asked about Tatum, and maybe the answer is a little more obvious when it comes to Jaylen because he's just not of Tatum's level right now. But what does he still need to work on aside from free throw shooting? We know he's got to work on that. And what do you think his ceiling is?
Oh, I don't know. If he just maintains this level, I don't know what more. I mean, he's when you're. He's his size. He's who he is. Tatum can accomplish something at his size, and Brown's can accomplish something at his. I like it. I don't think he needs to be much better. If he's going to be throwing in 20 a night, when we already knew that he established his original reputation as a defensive player, I just ceiling. What? I don't know. Maybe someday make an all-star game, I don't know, something like that. I'm not. Well, I'm just happy. I'm just very happy the way he is.
Well, part of the reason that both Brown and Tatum have been so good this year is, well, I'll defer to Brad Stevens.
Gordon, I think, has obviously had a really good year. And the biggest thing about that is that, obviously he feels better. I think the summer helped where he put in a lot of work, and then he's just done a good job of, along with Kemba, saying, let's let these two guys be as good as they can be, and let's do what we can to help them. And then, be as good as we can be when needed. And they've just been, really good at that. And so it's been a big part of our, so far, what we've been able to accomplish.
So Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, they've been just so willing to defer, to let the young guys lead when they're hot. Winning, it very apparently comes first for these guys, these vets who have not experienced a whole lot of winning in their careers, at least not when it counts in the playoffs. So how special or unique do you think that is, though, in today's climate of star athletes? Because we saw what happened last year, and it was a totally different situation. Yeah,
you're right. It's very refreshing and rewarding for us as fans watching them do it. And when it clicks and when they're playing a good game, this team is really enjoyable. And Hayward, as I did mention earlier, I wish he could be more consistently what he is. I don't know what. Is this it? Is this the way it's going to be? He's teasing us, I think, more, too much. What you want desperately to like him. You want desperately for him to get back to where he was, and the reason why he came here, the reason why Danny invested, significant dollars and hope in him. But he is. He's been excellent. He's been at times this year. It's been tremendous. It's been excellent. There are some times when you just go, oh God, give me a little more. But attitude-wise, he's a good mix, part of the mix, veteran-wise. Helping appreciate this kid. No, this team, and then there's so many different people we could talk about. And Daniel Tyson, whoever dreamed he'd become this prominent, etc. But once again, it is that core group, period. It so much depends on them night in and night out because of this problem. In opposition to Mr. Ainge, and what I consider to be a problem is bench production. There are nights when it's nice to have that infusion off the bench. And really, who's the close? Who is it? It's not Brad Wanamaker. He did have a double-figure game not too long ago. It's almost like it's a real. Now the other X factor, and that comes. There are going to be plenty of nights. The other night was one of those examples of how the game has evolved. The fact that Cantor got a DNP. When Cantor has been so prominent and so important so many other nights this season,
right.
But they were playing against the Rockets, and he couldn't find in his mind a place to put him in the game for 1 second. This is amazing. But there are nights when Cantor is a major, plus, and those nights will occur before the season's over.
We'll talk about some of those bigs in a sec, but just staying with Kemba for a moment, he's missed the 5 straight games since playing around 30 minutes in the All-Star game. People have been all over that, and unsurprisingly so, but the knee, it's still bothering him. It's possible he'll be back tomorrow against the Nets as we chat right now. Maybe he won't. We'll see. But regardless, Boston's going to have to manage his minutes down the stretch to ensure he is as healthy as possible entering the playoffs. But are you worried about that knee?
Yes. I don't like it. And I didn't want to get involved in that hoo-ha about the All-Star game. But, the problem in the conspiratorial thinkers among us had an easy argument there, in that who was coaching the team, but one of your a tremendously important rival. One, by the way, you have to prove you can beat. Frankly, whenever it matters. But that didn't look good. Although I don't think there was anything nefarious in the mind of Nick Nurse. I think hardly at all. But you can understand how conspiratorial people would say, "Well, look at that. Who was the coach? It was Nick Nurse. He was going to run down our guy." I'm worried because we need him, and on two levels. One, I want to see him play. I love watching him play, and two, we need him. And I say we as a fan, so I want him. And they're not going to, whatever their full ultimate destiny is. Of course, it's got to include Kemba Walker being a primary factor. So that does concern me. Yes, it's nice when they can win games without him, and that's all well and good. In the NBA, every team has to have those circumstances when they're got to win without their best people. Look what Philly, they didn't get it done yesterday, but boy, they almost got it done against a really good team without their guys. You need those games, but you want your aces out there, and I want Kemba Walker back. Yes.
You mentioned Daniel Tice. Does it surprise you that obviously he's been so good, so steady defensively, so reliable offensively? He's setting screens, he's rolling to the rim, he's been a good playmaker, he's getting key rebounds, all of it. Putting up numbers occasionally, but consistent production. Does it surprise you that there hasn't been that much of a drop-off from Al Horford to Tice in terms of what they bring to this team?
Yes, I'm gratified. I didn't like losing Al, but it turns out they got the best out of Al I think that anybody's going to get from now on. Philly's mightily disappointed. There's no doubt about it. And they got a big investment there. Yes, I didn't think that we would get along so well in that regard. But Daniel Tice is simply a better basketball player than I ever realized, and he made at least 3 tremendous blocks in the Rocket game. By the way, and one of the things he does really well, he didn't have to do the other night, but he's part of this modern 3-point mania. He can make that shot. No, I never dreamed, that this guy would be this good, and he's really been an asset.
Again, it doesn't appear that the Celtics roster is going to change at all before this postseason, aside from Robert Williams returning. So you've got Tice, solid in his role. You got Enes Kanter, you talked about. There are good matchups for him, and he's a good contributor off the bench when called upon. And, Boston's had smaller guys play the 5 as well, the whole positionless basketball thing. But what can Robert Williams add to this team when he is back in the coming days from that hip injury?
Well, they're hoping that in the circumstances that they can play him, fortunately you don't have to play the Rockets every night.
Right.
He gives them that traditional old-fashioned the defensive presence. Look, what's the phrase in vogue? The rim protector. He is their resident rim protector. That if anybody qualifies as one on their roster, it is he. And they've been intrigued about him from day one. I mean, he was a semi-project when they got him, if you will. Mm-hmm. And health has been the absolute primary issue. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. They've seen glimpses of things, and they really like, because he got up to that bad start, with the tardiness thing, and he had to prove to people
lost
that he
his
really
wallet
was
a couple of times. It was a mess.
He was serious. You're a professional now, son. This is no laughing matter. You better take your job seriously. You better get here on time. Anyway. There's a dimension. There's a word. Good. He gives them a dimension that they otherwise lack. Now, they, it could be some night that's enough to tip the scales if he warrants playing time. If it's not this year, it might be next year. But they're determined. They're hopeful that they're going to get something meaningful out of him. They really like his tools. There's no doubt.
I mentioned earlier we'll turn back the clock a little bit. Let's do that now because things are so good for the Celtics this year, so enjoyable as a fan, as a media member, as certainly a player on that team, whatever it may be, things are great. We're dreaming big. I think we can stomach a moment of when times were not so good. Do you know what was 20 years ago yesterday?
Okay, 99. 2000 yesterday, March. Was that Rick?
Yeah,
Rick?
That's right.
That 20 years, wow, that's stunning. I knew it was coming up, but 20. Yeah, well, we're waiting for that farewell press conference.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's been a little bit busy, but he'll carve out a little time. That whole era, was very fascinating. Obviously, from day one, from the coronation down at the Garden, what it was. It was like Queen Elizabeth in 1952. Bringing him in here, and it didn't work, and period didn't work. And I'll just sum it up for people who, in my judgment.
Well, so wait. So hold that thought before you sum it up, because for anyone that is too young to remember or just has not heard it in a while, Rick Pitino, the rant against the media after Boston's buzzer-beating loss to Toronto. Vince Carter, yes, he was still playing back then, had a game-winning three-pointer to obviously give the Raptors that victory, and was asked. Pitino was asked what he told his young team after playing so hard in a loss, and then you just had to think he had this one holstered up, ready to go for whenever the time was going to need it, because this is what he had to say. People have only heard the clips over the years. This was the full rant.
Well, we've played hard the whole year. We're going to be positive every day. You're the people being negative. You and some of the fans. Larry Bird's not walking through that door, fans. Kevin McHale's not walking through that door, and Robert Parrish is not walking through that door. And if you expect them to walk through the door, they're going to be gray and old. What we are is young, exciting, hardworking, and going to improve. People don't realize that. And as soon as they realize that those three guys are not coming through that door, the better this town will be for all of us. Because they're young guys in that room playing their asses off. I wish we had $90 million under the salary cap. Wish we could buy the world. We can't. The only way we can do is work hard. And all this negativity that's in this town sucks. And I've been around, and when Jim Rice was booed, I've been around with Yastrzemski booed, and it stinks. It makes the greatest town, greatest city in the world lousy. The only thing going to turn this around is being upbeat and positive like we are in that locker room. So if you think that we're not coming to play against the Toronto Raptors, you're mistaken. Only we're not coming to play with Bird, McHale, and Parrish, or Cousy or Russell. We're coming with young guys who want to get better, want to play the game. And we're going to stay positive all the way through. And if you think I'm going to succumb to negativity, you're wrong. You got the wrong guy leading this basketball team.
Think about how much grayer and older those three guys would be right now, Bird, McHale, and Parrish. But the last part, Bob, he was absolutely right about. Wrong guy. Pitino didn't last a whole lot longer, resigned only 10 months later. So, I cut you off before, so I'll let you continue just of that era.
First of all, I just learned that the question that prompted that had to do with rebounding. So you're 100% correct, Adam. That was a total premeditated. He was going to find a way to get that off his chest that night.
Yep.
Okay. The sum total is good coach, atrocious general manager with no patience. His general manager did in his coach. His general manager was himself. And that's the summation of his Boston experience. He is so spooked by his Boston experience, he's basically whitewashed it from his resume. It's like it never happened. He went from BU to the Knicks, to Providence, to the Knicks, to Kentucky, to the Celtics. To Kentucky, to Louisville.
Yeah.
But
Celtics never happened.
Those never happened. He's utterly, and it's the biggest. Remember, he actually had he was so audacious. I used to kid. He had more. He had more. Autobiographies. He had about 3 of them, and one of them was "Success is a Choice."
Apparently, he didn't choose it then.
Didn't choose it in Boston. The hubris. The whole. Look, he's. So yeah, that episode in the Boston history is really fascinating. There's no doubt. I remember opening night though. I was drinking the Kool-Aid big time.
I was going to ask you that. I didn't go back in the Globe archives to look.
Go back and look up the opening night. They beat the Bulls, I think, without Jordan, and Jordan was hurt. Or either that or Pippen was hurt. One of them was not there. They beat him. Travis Knight had a big game. His big import that he
Yep.
cleared roster space for. He had 13 rebounds, And I think what I said was real professional basketball came back to Boston last night.
So what about
I mentioned Paul Pierce. I guess I have to say some of us, I can't run away from it. It's there.
He drafted him.
Yep.
I mean, granted, he slipped all the way to 10. He would have had to be an idiot to pass to him.
Rick Pitino come. I was like everybody else. I thought, this is great. But the problem, ultimately was he had too much power, and he was a GM, and he was a lousy judge of NBA talent. He never even looked at he let Rick Fox go cavalierly. He would have loved Rick Fox. It's as a player, and I'm glad for Rick Fox. He went to the Lakers, got a ring. That's great. But Rick was a lousy judge of NBA talent. He's a good college recruiter. We know that, but sorry. He's good to a 16-year-old and project him into a 19-year-old, but he was a bad judge of NBA talent. And then, of course, he was impatient. Trading Chauncey Billups, who showed some flashes in those 3 months he was here, but he wanted a, quote, real point guard. Who drafted him? Who knew that Chauncey Billups was not a 1, he was not a 2 at that point coming out of college. He was a hybrid. He was a combo guard. Everybody knew it.
Yep.
So he drafts him. He shoehorns him, wants him to be a 1. He doesn't progress as quickly as he wants. He trades him for Kenny Anderson. Chauncey Billups winds up getting the ring in Detroit, and there's lots of examples like that.
Yeah, although I think about that one all the time too. I was going to bring it up, even before you did. But the only thing with Chauncey that I'll give Pitino a slight pass on, and not even for trading him, because obviously he gave up on him way, way too soon. We saw the player he became, but it did take a handful of stops before he really came into his own and he got there.
Yes, it did. It wasn't instant. It was probably his 15 when he finally.
Right.
Seriously, yeah, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. But the impatience is what I'm trying to get.
Right, absolutely. No, you couldn't be more right about that.
Patience. There's no reason that Chauncey Billups couldn't have become a 10-year Celtic, and if Rick had exercised his patience.
Yeah, that was interesting era, and one that I'm glad was as fleeting at the old Fleet Center, if you will, as it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Bob, this has been fun. It always is, and always a thrill when you come on the show. I'm looking forward to. So if people ever wondered, boy, do guests get the questions in advance? This is proof right here. You do not, because I'm looking forward to you doing your homework and telling me where you think the Celtics rank 1 through 6 against the rest of the NBA.
Okay, that's my assignment. Okay, Professor, I will get back to you.
Not often I get to give Bob Ryan homework, but here we are.
Okay, Adam, anytime. You know that.
Thanks so much. Talk to you again soon.
Okay.
Always a great thrill talking to Bob Ryan. It really is. I love that we have him on the show however many times a year. He's just great. And if you don't listen to his podcast, the CLNS podcast with Jeff Goodman, you should make sure you do that as well, because both of those guys really they make up a great tandem, wealth of experience, knowledge, contacts, all of it. You should check that one out. As always, though, I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. Go to iTunes, search Celtics or Celtics Beat. It'll pop right up. Subscribe, and these shows, they come out every single week. We're into the stretch run at this point. It's going to be a lot of fun. A few more weeks left in the regular season or month, whatever it is, but not a ton of games. We're more than 3/4 of the way through the year at this point. The Celtics still jockeying, trying to get that second seed, trying to pull it away from the Raptors. They're only, as we chat right now, a game and a half back, so that Rockets loss didn't kill them. Win would have been great, would have made them that much closer, obviously, but that loss manageable, I guess, for lack of a better word. Thanks to Bob, thanks to Evan, thanks to Nick, Larry, John, everybody at CLNS Media. Thanks, of course, most of all to you. Always welcome your feedback. You can get me on Twitter at Adam M. Kaufman. Since we don't have it as part of the show, I'll make sure to tweet whatever Bob tells me the results are of his homework assignment. And, something for you guys to think about as well. 1 through 6, okay? You're when everybody's healthy. Tatum, Brown, Kemba, Hayward, obviously Smart, and Tice, 1 through 6, are the Celtics the deepest team in the NBA? See what you think. Tweet me. Again, at Adam M. Kaufman. In the meantime, Gino, get us out of here.